This morning, Shams decided to give us a ton of information and insight into the process of Jonathan Kuminga and his contract extension with the Golden State Warriors. Some of the deals that apparently were offered and rejected, different variations of contracts, and just a lot of stuff. So we have a lot of information for a situation that is expected to be resolved this week per Mark Stein. So hopefully this is all coming to a conclusion and we see him and the other guys that the Warriors have waiting in the wings make their way to the roster, and then everything else after that unfolds, of course, naturally. Hopefully you guys enjoy this video as well on the Basketball Bulletin. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe. Let's get this video to 300 likes as per our goal for today. Hopefully you guys have some nice things to say about the Jonathan Kuminga process. And firstly, I want to start off with something that is pretty cool. Nothing crazy, of course, but Bismack, guaranteed one-year deal with the San Antonio Spurs. He'll be returning for his 15th season. Just last year, he played in 28 games for them and averaged 5 points and 5 rebounds. I still remember that health scare he had on the bench. Thankfully, it didn't wind up being anything crazy. I believe it was just a blood pressure drop, things like that, back in 2024. So love to see Bismack out there. Just he's not anybody that's super flash or anything like that, but from what I've seen, he seems like a really good dude. And I love when these guys pick up these deals. And also these guys that have been around for a long time, man. I'm not ready to let these older guys go, man. 15 years, keep them around. Just keep them coming, man. Anyway, moving on. Let's get into this news about Jonathan Kuminga from Shams Charania here as well. The last thing that we were hearing was that Jonathan was still not accepting their offers and the 2-year, $45 million deal. That was one of the main things that we were hearing, is that they were not able to come to a conclusion. And some of that's just because of the fact that, they were not able to decide on the options and all that stuff. And well, we've talked about this. I mean, we may have like 10 videos on this Jonathan Kuminga thing, seriously, because there was a period where there was so many of the different updates coming out, right? But we've talked about it at length here on the channel. But one of the things I said in some of those videos was, hey, what about just like saying, okay, well, let's just go down the middle, money-wise, option-wise, just go straight down the middle, decide that way. They also talked about that here. We'll cover that in this. Also, I said, well, what about a 1-year big payment deal? And the Warriors apparently didn't want to do that, but that was something that was also on the table. They've really, with this situation that's been going on for quite a while all summer, they've really approached this from every possible angle and still not been able to come to a decision. You know, with the Josh Giddey thing, Josh Giddey's situation, it was interesting because he wanted to retain there, and he wanted to remain there. Excuse me, they wanted to retain him, and because I can't talk, right? But that was a situation where, the Bulls wound up blinking. They decided to offer him as much money, basically as much as he wanted at that point. He wanted like a high 20. They settled on mid 20s, but that was the easy number for both sides to kind of reconcile that. Because like I said, there was mutual interest there, and that hasn't so much been the case with Jonathan Kuminga. But, we do know that there are people in the Warriors organization, like owner Joe Lacob, right, who has always been a big fan of Kuminga. There's interesting information on that as well, but they haven't been able to come to a decision because not everybody agrees on all of that. So we're going to dive into that and more after a quick word from today's video sponsor, and also after I learn how to talk again. Ever heard of the Sleeper app? Well, here's a little secret. It's more than just a platform for season-long fantasy leagues. This year, millions of users enjoyed playing fantasy sports on Sleeper, but the app offers so much more. There's live stats, real-time updates, and visualization on all stats. There's a news feed where you can get lightning-fast updates on your favorite players and teams, and a real-time chat where you can engage with other users about individual plays and performances during the NFL and NBA seasons. So download the #1 sports app and experience it yourself today. And when you do, use promo code Bulletin, and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. All right, so after remaining in the negotiation shadows for the first 6 weeks of Jonathan Kuminga's restricted free agency, Golden State's owner, Joe Lacob, emerged from behind the curtain in mid-August. General manager Mike Dunleavy sent a weekend request for an in-person Monday morning meeting August 11th in Miami. The 10 a.m. Eastern time mattered as well. Lacob planned to attend the Golden State Valkyries game that night in San Francisco, but the matter was urgent enough to pull Lacob across the country. Bargaining between Kuminga's side and Dunleavy's front office had hit a wall. The Warriors had shut down sign and trades, steadfast all offseason in declining frameworks of deals centered around Royce O'Neal and second-round compensation from the Suns, or Malik Monk and future first-round picks from the Kings, sources said, which that's interesting because those are two teams we heard are interested in Kuminga. We also heard some rumblings of an offer from Sacramento, and we heard a little bit of stuff about the framework of something kind of brewing in Phoenix as well. But we heard about this throughout the summer that they were very interested in trying to get Jonathan Kuminga, and I'm sure they remain interested. And these are situations that earlier in the offseason, they were saying like Jonathan would very much welcome going to these teams because he'd be able to get basically what he's asking for, despite the Warriors' reluctance to give him what he wants. He'd be able to get that mostly from the other teams that are interested in him because obviously they're interested in him in a way that Golden State doesn't seem to be at this point. Because the big thing is Golden State really wants to keep him the asset that they can turn and flip into other things as well, as opposed to him, the player, right? So moving on. Kuminga had made clear his lack of interest in the 2-year, $45 million standing offer the Warriors had put in front of him because of the team's option on the second season and waiving the de facto no-trade clause. Yeah, that is a lot of control. Waiving the no-trade clause and the team option on there, that's too much. And the problem is that if you're Kuminga, you're already in a situation where you're not prioritized. So like I've said before, you are in a situation where you're going to be fighting tooth and nail for every opportunity, right? Because I don't expect them to go out there and forcefully play you. They've already shown that they'll give you DNPs if they feel like that's necessary for whatever reason. They'll do it. I don't think they're going to go out there and forcefully play you all too much. Maybe they'll play you a little bit just to show that you can still go out there, you're healthy, all that stuff. But mostly whatever's going to happen, a team trading for you is trading for you purely on potential, purely on seasons past production, like things like that. So the four most relevant parties, Lacob, Dunleavy, Kuminga, and Kuminga's agent, convened for what felt like the most significant conversation of a Warriors offseason stuck in the mud. They talked numbers and structure and the 4 years of basketball scars that had led them to the stalemate, but there was an underlying question from Lacob's side that felt most pressing, which was, do you want to be here? The $22 million salary the Warriors were proposing to give Kuminga next season was more immediate money than he would receive in the theoretical Phoenix and Sacramento offers, though far less in long-term guarantees. And that's the thing, though, right? The long-term money. It would make him the fourth highest paid player on the team with 3 Hall of Famers. Considering the frigid nature of the restricted market, the Warriors felt the offer more than fair and Kuminga's reluctance a sign of his desire to escape. I think both of those are true. If he is going to get enough money to be the fourth highest paid player on this team, the other guys ahead of him are champions and well-decorated players, in the case of like Jimmy, who's not a champion, but I can understand that, right? And with the way that the salary cap is nowadays, they feel like based on what they're using him for, things like that, 22 million or whatever it was. Yeah, 22 million is a good number for him. And they're seeing him declining that as him wanting to escape. I think both of those are true because I don't think he wants to be in Golden State either. I talked about how Golden State wants the asset, but I don't think the player wants to be in Golden State either. So that's the problem, right? So he's also probably playing hardball because of that reason too. But everything within this 4-year multi-character tug of war is layered. The team-friendly structure was designed and pitched to Kuminga as a contract more easily moved when eligible in January. They could keep and bury him on the bench or trade him to an undesirable location. That's what I've been saying, right? So, like, it's team-friendly. They've got all the control there. And who is saying that they have to play him? He literally says they could bury him on the bench and trade him to an undesirable situation. That is the ultimate fear if you're Jonathan Kuminga, is they trade you somewhere you flat out don't want to be, and you never really got opportunity to show what you could be. And maybe you also still don't get that opportunity. I do think you would because the team would be trading for you. But maybe you still don't get that opportunity wherever you go, right? But maybe you're going to a place you absolutely hate for whatever reason, culture, whatever it is. I don't know. The weather, who knows, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you're still getting millions and millions and millions of dollars. But, that is a thing, right? He has fierce belief in his talents and is searching for a path to somewhere he believes will grant him an opportunity to flourish. And that's the main thing. He actually says in this article that Kuminga believes he has the potential to be a multi-time all-star, right? And that's very similar to like the Cam Thomas thing, where it's like, it's great to have that confidence in yourself, but do other teams see that? I think with Kuminga, teams are more willing to buy into that than they are with Cam for a number of different reasons, probably mostly because of the physical tools that Kuminga has as well. but teams are more willing to buy into that. I think Kuminga is a really good player. I do think he's been underutilized. I do think he's been incorrectly managed at points during this Warriors tenure. And I also do think he's been strung along a little bit, right? They build him as being the next guy, then kind of pulled the rug under him and the rest of the team and pulled a championship out of nowhere as well. But, you know, they were on the 2 timeline thing and just shifted all that stuff. And I can understand that. But also, for the record, I do think he didn't hold up his end of the bargain as well to a degree. They really needed him to develop in certain key areas of the game, his feel for the game, his read of the game, his shooting, all these things. And some of that stuff just takes a lot of time, but these are things they really needed him to do, because if he developed these things, he'd fit better, and they probably aren't in this situation. He'd be playing 30 minutes a night, you know, all these different things. So September brings an extra level of urgency for NBA teams without complete rosters. The Warriors, entering the final stages of Curry's feasible contention window, only have 9 of their 15 spots officially filled 2 weeks prior to training camp. Yeah, that's why this is getting concluded soon. Somebody's going to blink here, and they don't have a choice. They don't have a choice because they have to get going, right? They have to get going. Kuminga, is the domino that triggers the rest of their plans. So it's no surprise Kuminga's phone lit up on the business front over the past few weeks. His star teammates, Jimmy Butler and Draymond, have reached out, checking on Kuminga, his plans, and his mindset. Kuminga's agent, Turner, has delivered the latest proposal to the front office after a week of increasing negotiations, but still no resolution. The Warriors have strengthened their offer. Late last week, Dunleavy offered Kuminga a 3-year, $75 million deal with a team option on the 3rd season. So they gave him another year on there, which, of course, increased the money by a lot, but still keeping that team option on there. That's $48.3 million guaranteed in the first 2 seasons, and basically the same per year salary cap as fellow restricted free agent Giddey, who re-signed with the Bulls for 4 years and $50 million. The difference, however, is half the length and a team-controlled 3rd season, and a subliminal understanding that the contract is more trade asset than commitment to a partnership. So that's the thing. They're signing him to this deal so they could trade him. That's all that they're really trying to do. And the big thing with that is that the team option of the 3rd year just makes that so much more digestible for another team that will grab him if they don't want him. That's the thing. Like I mentioned earlier, a team could be trading for him because they want him, but they also could be trading for him as just salary filler and have zero interest in him and just waive him after that. That is also on the table, right? I still would imagine a team trading for him would hopefully want him and try to use him and develop him, things like that. But that's there. He doesn't have any control over that situation. And I think that this came on the heels, because it said late last week. This sounds like it came on the heels, given that it's Monday, of the Giddey extension. And we were talking about that too at the time, that the Giddey extension probably shines a spotlight on Kuminga. That's why I brought it up earlier, because the monetary of it is mostly the same. Like, they're looking for similar monetary gains here. It's just the annual on it, right? And the control on it that matters a lot. So I think that seeing that extension came through, they were like, okay, fine, we'll increase the money. However, we're going to still give you 1 more year. So you get the same amount of guaranteed, like 48 versus 50. It's roughly the same thing. But we're going to keep that 3rd year with the option. Dunleavy and the Warriors are requesting the same structure as their previous proposal on the 2-year 45 framework, as team options on the 2nd and a waiving of the inherent no trade clause, sources said. Their unwillingness to budge on the team option in those specific 2 offers is a major part of the holdup. Kuminga, gripping to the first lever of control he has had in his young career, is resistant to the idea of it. The only non-team option offer the Warriors have made to Kuminga is 3 years and $54 million fully guaranteed, sources said, an annual average of $18 million. So there is an option out there that they've offered him that does not include that. However, it's for much less money, right? 18 instead of the 3 years 75, it's 3 year 54. So that's how much the Warriors are valuing that control. That's interesting. That's a lot of money. I mean, again, it's a lot of money regardless, but that's also got a 3rd year on it. If you're Kuminga, though, do you want to be on an $18 million deal for a few seasons? Debatable, right? Debatable. I don't actually personally hate this one, though. 3 year 54. To be honest, that's kind of them offering what I would expect them to offer, splitting down the middle. He still probably is the fourth highest paid player on their books at that point. Still close to 20 million, but he wants closer to the mid 20s is what it is, right? So that's a lot of money per year to give up. I can understand both sides of this, but that's kind of roughly where if the question at that point is like, how much do you value them having that team option on there? Like, how much is that worth to you monetarily? Because at a point, it's like cake and eat it too. Can you get that? Maybe, possibly, potentially. If you drag this on long enough, maybe, But the real question here is like the threat of the qualifying offer, which I believe we talk about here in a moment. But that to me isn't the craziest thing. But I'm not Kuminga. Certainly don't want to pocket watch, right? Okay. At least there's a framework of something out there. Maybe if they took this and turned it to 60, so he'd be getting 20 mil per year, maybe that would be better for him with no option on it. But at that point, do they just want an option? Did they not counter this with another offer? I'm curious about that. Turner and Kuminga have spent much of the summer requesting a player option as part of their preferred deal, sources said, showing a willingness to dip down into the 20 million range per. Okay, well, there it is. So they'll do 20 million or around 20 million. I presume the 18 million or whatever, if they get a team or a player option, as opposed to no option or a team option. There's the three options, right? No option, team option, player option. He also wants a player option. So that's a big part of it. So they're willing to go there, but they want a T or a player option. But believing a team option deal would cost around $30 million per year, the Warriors have also viewed a player option as a non-starter. This is why this has been such a stalemate. That's hilarious, man. Believing a team option deal should cost around $30 million per year. So he wants $30 million per year if they're going to do a team option. And the Warriors also have said that a player option is just not happening. It doesn't matter what, they're not getting a player option. Huh. Okay. Wow. Okay. That's certainly interesting. Turner and Kuminga have presented alternatives. One of the latest counters, sources said, came in the past week. 1 year on a negotiable number presented as a souped-up version of the qualifying offer, getting Kuminga a financial bump up from the $8 million offer, and unrestricted free agency next summer while wiping away the inherent no-trade clause and allowing the Warriors to use him as an expiring contract at the deadline. It would serve as a bridge deal that gives both sides the ability to examine another year together, but also a much more trade-friendly salary number as opposed to the qualifying offer, which has a October 1st deadline. It is similar to a concept that Brooklyn Nets proposed to Cam Thomas. Dunleavy, however, declined the concept, sources said, and it is Lacob who is apparently against the balloon 1 year offer, leaving the Warriors too vulnerable to losing Kuminga next summer for nothing. Okay, but you're still vulnerable regardless, because if he takes the qualifying offer and doesn't, and then he inherently has that no trade clause, he's waiving it for more money. Like if they give him enough money, he will waive it. But it's still either way a 1 year thing. But the thing is, you're able to use him at the deadline if you need to. So maybe that is where you need to go with this. I mean, if you're not able to get a multi-year deal done because you're not willing to give a player option if you're the Warriors, he's not willing to take a team option, and the offer that you're providing out there that has no option isn't enough money for him, then maybe there's a compromise somewhere in the middle, right? But you may just have to go down this route. This is what I talked about in the beginning, where there's just like a 1 year big payment deal. However, again, he's waiving that inherent no trade clause, and they go from there. So the stalemate of the summer drags further into September. Lacob has been a central figure in Kuminga's NBA career since the beginning. Bob Myers was team president and Dunleavy assistant general manager when they drafted Kuminga in 2021. They gave the collective green light, but Lacob was a driving force in the selection when others, including a few of the coaching staff, voiced a Franz Wagner preference, sources said. Yeah, same with Giddey. They really wanted Giddey. I believe they would have taken Giddey had he fallen one more slot. That's been something that's been reported as well. But we've heard repeatedly that, and this is exactly what I was talking about earlier, some people in the organization really want and like Kuminga, some don't. And so that's created an internal conflict around Kuminga and how to handle him, how to manage his usage, his minutes, a whole bunch of other things too. Because Lacob has also openly come out and talked about that stuff too. Lacob has remained a staunch Kuminga supporter and vocal believer in his long-term future. He voiced an unwillingness to include Kuminga in a proposed trade for Chicago for Alex Caruso a couple of seasons back, and was still glowingly about Kuminga's performance in May after he rose from out of Steve Kerr's first-round rotation to the team's leading scorer in the second-round loss to Minnesota. The two sat courtside together at the Valkyries game soon after the series, and Lacob asked Kuminga to keep an open mind about their future together. But Lacob, while involved, opinionated, and willing to spend, has never demanded specific rotation decisions, sources said. Kerr, a four-time champion coach, will be given the same power he has always had over his operation in his 12th season with the Warriors. Kuminga's side understands that and knows, considering the history and roster dynamics in place, a reunion comes with a likely bench role and the possibility of being minimized for stretches of the season. Again, that's what I've been talking about several times. That is also Kuminga. If you're the risk, what could happen? This is why he's so dead set on the money. That is exactly why he's so dead set on the money, because there is a very real chance that he has to work his way back up value-wise in a lot of different situations, because they're not going to put him out there to really show what he can do. And this, again, is the concern for Cam as well, taking that qualifying offer. I do think they'll start the season with him, but they're going to try to look to trade him probably at the deadline. Hopefully by then, they have things in order to start their tank. But if they have to keep him from there, they may just flat out just give him DNPs and just start trying to position towards playing their young guys and tanking more. Like, I don't know. But this is the problem you're in on these one-year deals if you're aspiring to get more money, right? Kuminga's personal relationship with Kerr isn't a problem. The messaging from Kerr and the Warriors is that Kuminga would have a substantial role to open next season, per sources. They could use his youth and scoring on the wing, but in negotiation, Kuminga's side has regularly referred to some postseason comments where Kerr highlighted the difficulty of fitting Kuminga next to Curry, Butler, and Green for heavy minutes and expecting to win at the highest level. It's proof to them that the basketball fit is less than ideal for the trajectory of Kuminga's career. They're using that against them in negotiations. That's funny. That's why they voiced this message to the Warriors front office in the process. Sell the contract, not the basketball. Phoenix, 4 years, 80 to 88 million. And Sacramento, 3 years, 63 to 66 million, have attached player options to their proposed deals and pitched the starting power forward job. I mean, look at that. That's like, if you're Kuminga, how is that not more enticing? You get a player option, a guaranteed starting role, and in the case of Phoenix anyway, a 4-year deal. Like, how is that not enticing, right? That isn't available with the Warriors. He wouldn't get the 30 minutes per night consistently in the starting and closing role he desperately craves. That's what brings the conversation back to the meeting with Lacob. In the lead-up, there was the sentiment around Kuminga that Lacob would step in and at least deliver the type of financial pledge that signifies a long-term belief in Kuminga that he often voices. Or if not, if the Warriors weren't willing to commit to what Turner and Kuminga were requesting, maybe Lacob would show more of a willingness to greenlight a trade elsewhere and proceed with a basketball divorce that is often felt necessary. They still don't believe that box has been checked. Okay. While the NBA gathered in Las Vegas in July, Turner presented Dunleavy with Kuminga's offer, 3-year, $82 million deal, including a player option, sources said. So Kuminga was asking back in Vegas Summer League for a 3-year, $82 million deal with a player option. I bet the Warriors looked at that and laughed and ripped that thing up, man. I bet they did. The Warriors have been hesitant to go that rich for that long for Kuminga, showing a concern about how the deal might age, sources said. The Curry, Butler, and Green contracts all expire in 26-27. At the moment, they're projected to have clean books and flexibility in 27 as well. I wonder how much of this is because of that. Like, do they just want to full-on pivot? Like, because I've said this also. I know. You have to have watched all the videos to hear all these references. There's a possibility all these guys retire by that point. Like, we're kind of in the twilight for all these guys. You know, we only talk about like LeBron, maybe KD, Russ, but these guys are also in that same, like, they may retire in the next couple seasons, right? So I'm curious about that too. Like, do the Warriors in that circumstance just want to full on pivot completely, right? And I'm sure that they're forward thinking too a little bit. Like, how do we have that? Like, maybe they're trying to also use Kuminga to go in on this period, yes, but also maybe get an asset for that period too. Maybe draft pick or something, right? The first season salary is also a crucial point in negotiation. While the Warriors haven't officially made any moves this summer, they've lined up all their other roster targets to pursue after the Kuminga domino falls. Yeah, they can't offer him too much because they have to be able to sign the other guys, long story short. Horford, Melton, Gary Payton II, and Seth Curry are the guys that are waiting right now. They have been behind the scenes. They know the strategy and approve the anticipated results. So they've just been patiently waiting. That's like I said, that's pretty cool, man. The tentative plan hard caps them at the second apron, and it means $22.5 million is the most they could offer Kuminga next season while holding 15 roster players. A figure that has so far proven too low for Kuminga to accept a multi-year deal attached to a team option. So they can't give him more than that, but that's too low, right? So he's not willing to accept that with the team option. Like we talked about earlier, he wants close to 30 million. If you're going to have a team option, it needs to be close to 20 million. Or 30 million, which, by the way, this is some cap guru stuff here. If that's the case, would it just be a 1 year, the souped up balloon payment? Would it just be a 1 year, $22.5 million deal? Because that's the most they could give him. 22 million 1 year, as opposed to the $8 million deal. Is that what that would be? That's interesting. And that's also why they're reluctant to do the other moves first, because that means that there's a number that other teams that would be interested in him, like Brooklyn, for example, maybe could offer him, and they would have no way to match it. So that's why they have the other guys waiting. It has to be done in a certain order. Kuminga's leverage is the 1 year, $8 million qualifying offer attached to an inherent no trade clause. As the summer has dragged on and the discomfort in these negotiations has grown further, Kuminga has warmed further to the idea. The decision to sign it could very well take place on October 1st deadline unless either side caves. Yeah, they've got 2 weeks to get this done. He's going to sign it on October 1st if nobody caves here. There is financial drawbacks and all that stuff that we talked about, but this is mostly completed. A temporary union remains the expected scenario, but cap and restricted free agency dynamics have kept them in a summer staring contest. Both sides are waiting for the other to blink. All right. As the Miami conversation laid bare, there's a relationship where trust and commitment from both sides appear to be lacking. Does Kuminga want to be there? Do the Warriors truly want him? I can answer that question. I've already done so. All right, guys. Well, quite a lot in this piece from Shams. He put this together with a lot of information about how this process has gone on. And ultimately, wow, this is a long video. Thank you for watching this, by the way. I appreciate it big time. If you watched, put in the comments, I'll watch the whole thing. Appreciate you. Ultimately, as you see, this is why we have been in this stalemate all summer long, because these sides are just too far apart. And it's not a situation like Cam in that they're just like, okay, well, whatever. You know, like I want 40, 35 million, whatever, but we only want to give you 14. Like they're not that far apart. So they're close enough to where I think they can reconcile. I just think both sides have to be willing to give a little bit back. But it seems like Kuminga doesn't really want to do that. And I can understand it because of different implications. For example, playing time, role on the team. And then if it's a 1 year qualifying offer, I will need more money. They don't want to do that because they don't want him on a 1 year deal no matter what, because they want to keep the asset. They don't want to lose him for nothing. There could also be a sign and trade possibility in the following offseason, but they're reluctant to do that or get to that point because they don't know if he would be willing to play ball and help them get something back as well in return. There's just a lot of different pieces to this. But regardless, this will have to be done within 2 weeks. They have no point. There's no choice, excuse me, but to conclude this. So we'll see what happens with this. Hopefully you all enjoyed this video here on the Basketball Bulletin. Make sure you hit that thumbs up and subscribe, and we'll see you all next time.